Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey in Your Own Backyard. I'm your host, Rob, and today I have a great guest with me. It's going to be a lot of fun to have this conversation. Looking forward to jumping into it. This is a guy here in Houston and the Katy area that, we all like to buy wine. If you want to buy wine, this is the guy you need to be talking to, and we're going to kind of go over what he does. But let's go ahead and introduce him. Rob May is my guest today. Rob, how you doing?
Hey, Rob, I'm great. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so Rob, you and I, we met, I guess it's been about a year ago, hasn't it? Not that long.
I think so, yeah. I'm not counting the days.
Yeah.
But
Jeremy Hart.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people know Jeremy. He's a big wine guy here around Houston and around the area and on Facebook. But Jeremy Hart and I were meeting one day at Central Market to look at some old world wine, something I wanted to get into. And as we were there, he had already scheduled a meeting where you were going to hook up with him and I think do a little lunch and have a little conversation, whatever. And that's kind of where you and I kind of got acquainted and met and started talking about wine. You jumped right into the conversation. I was like, man, this guy knows this stuff too.
Sure. Well, I think it was a fortuitous thing because Jeremy was running late, as Jeremy often runs late. And he said, I'm meeting some folks over at Central Market. Why don't you come by? I think they would be interested in what you do. And sure enough, Rob and I struck up a conversation, and Jeremy, he was showing all of his wines that were on the shelf, and I had an opportunity to pull Rob aside, and we talked about some other things that were there as well. But in the conversation, Rob was looking at a particular wine, and I said, "Look, this is the price on the shelf. I can do better than that." And you've attended some events that I've organized since
Absolutely.
then, and I guess we'll talk a little bit about that as we move on.
Yeah, the events are awesome, but let's start by talking about kind of what you do. Your company is Killer Vino.
Yes.
Just tell everybody kind of how it's set up, what you do, what do you bring for the people who are going to contact you and want to get wine.
Well, Killer Vino, I would call it a virtual wine shop, but that would suggest that maybe it's a web-based wine shop, and it's really not. I don't have a traditional bricks and mortar location. So the way I connect with clients is I put on wine events. So we do events called Taste and Buy, and it's just that you have an opportunity. So I think that where we get into my philosophy is that I want people to be able to expand their knowledge and their experience with wine so they get beyond what they're drinking every day. And the events that I organize, we offer wines from around the world and at a variety of price points. So it's an opportunity, to taste wines that an individual would probably never pick up and have the outlay. I mean, you don't want to light your money on fire when you're.
And let's be honest, when you go to the store, you typically buy wines you've already drank.
Exactly.
So to get exposed to new wines, to try new things, we're sometimes hesitant to spend dollars on something not knowing if we're going to like it or not. The thing I love about your events is we get to try them before we buy them, and it's an outstanding thing. So it's really what I enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we always say that it's an opportunity to expand your palate, expand your knowledge of wine. We have anywhere from distributors, reps to suppliers, and oftentimes winemakers, and they're able to answer questions on whatever level of knowledge that you have, from the very novice questions. There's never a dumb question. And a lot of times people are just afraid to ask, but I think the environment that we create is a place where people feel very comfortable asking whatever the question may be. And they do learn a lot. And what I have found with people is they may come in drinking only California wines, and I watch the trends over time. Then you look at, they may have something from Spain, they may have something from France, and it's just that opportunity that they had to taste the wines that all of a sudden their world, their portfolio, it expands.
Yeah.
And so the things that they will enjoy and drink, it just grows and grows. So
and I'm not going to lie, I was that guy that was locked into Napa for the first 5 or 6 years that I was drinking wine. And, it took me a little while to go, okay, I really like Napa and I like what I get there, but I know there's a whole lot more out there in the world of wine. How do I go find it? How do I know what I'm looking for? How do I explore that world where I'm getting bang for my buck and getting quality wine and all of those things? And that's where when I met you, I was like, all right, this is the guy to help me do that. And in the last almost year, it's been fantastic that I've gotten into some French, some Italian, some, Argentinian wines all over the world that you've helped me find that I just go, okay, I love these wines. And I'm excited that I continue to kind of grow my wine, I don't know what you'll call it, my expansion of wine as well. So it's really cool. But for people who want to get hooked up with you, Rob, they can contact you through your website. And I think it's really cool because what you do is you send out email alerts that will, one, let them know if you have some great deals on wine that you have access to from all around the world. But you will also send out your tastings and wine dinners and events and things like that they can also sign up for. Is that right?
Sure. That's the thing. Again, the best way to join the Killer Vino Club, or the family as we call it, because over time we all become family and friends as we experience wine and food together. But the best way is to send me an email at events@killervino.com, or you can go to the website, which is www.killervino.com, and there is a sign up link on the website. And with that, you're going to receive invitations or notices of events with either winemakers, suppliers, taste and buy events, which again, that's more of what we do. You'll get more of those. And I also send out email blasts with really good pricing on wines. Typically, I'm featuring wines like Duckhorn, Caymus, Jordan, Rombauer, and oftentimes these are things that you won't find in a typical retail environment because they're locked down. But by the nature of my business, I'm able to get my hands on these a lot of times when the stores don't have them. So I found that that's been a really nice aspect of my business that has grown in this last year.
Cool. So I know you and I, Rob, also, that's all the cool things that Killer Vino does, and man, we really enjoy being a family member, if you will.
Yeah.
But something that you and I have talked about that I think is going to be a lot of fun and really cool, we've told you that, we come in town to your events, and it's always cool to come in town to your events, but we've been talking a little bit and said, hey, man, we got a lot of wine people out in Katy, and we've got a lot of friends that like to drink wine, and they drink some good wines, and we thought we should try to put an event together maybe sometime after the first of the year, 6 weeks or so after the first year, maybe sometime in February, and do an event out in Katy and get these Katy people involved, kind of come and meet you, kind of see the wines that you put out with your distributors and your contacts, and let us do an event out there. I think you were okay with that.
I'm more than okay with that. How much is your Uber ride to Houston?
To your place, it's usually about $30.
So it's $60 round trip. Well, yeah. I would really prefer that you save that and spend it on wine.
Yeah, no kidding. That would be awesome. I would appreciate that too. That's another couple bottles.
But as you've told me, you've got a lot of people out in Katy that are probably hungry for this type of experience. And the events that we do, it is an experience. I mean, we're not just pouring some wine and
it's not come in and get out. It's
exactly.
A party, man. It's a fun time.
Yeah. And, educational, a lot of times we'll do entertainment. I never know what's going to fall into place, but it's always something pretty cool.
Yeah. And you always have, nice tasty bites to eat as you're drinking the wine, or sometimes you've even done a nice meal depending on the size of the group. And that's something we can work out and figure out what we want to do in Katy. But I like it because a lot of times you meet new people. I mean, it's kind of cool to come. It's nice to come with people sometimes, but I like coming to some of your events where I get to meet new people who are also drinking wine and kind of figure out what they're drinking, what they like, what they're getting from you, and it kind of helps me go, okay, maybe I want to try that. It's just a fun experience. I mean, your events that you put on.
Well, and that's why we call it a family, because the people that come to the events tend to connect on, at first on a level just chatting about wine, but as they learn more about who these people are, what they do, what their interests are, we have a lot of people that they come to the events and then, hey, we're going out to dinner afterwards.
Yeah.
Or I think we had one of my realtor friends actually sold a house and got a listing. So there's
event. That's pretty cool.
Well, we try to stay out of the
we're not networking.
The canned networking aspect of an event, which is really They're pretty annoying. I've gone to some networking events, but it's much more laid back and very casual. And that, again, is why we call it the family, because I think everybody that comes to these events, the suppliers and the guests that come, they start to get to know each other and become familiar with each other. And, it's a good thing.
I say the Food and Wine's doing its job, meaning, that's what brings people together. That's why I love Food and Wine. I mean, it's something that you do it with friends. You do it, and your events do that. And that's what I really enjoy about it, is that I know when I come, I'm going to get to experience some great wine. I'm going to have a little treat here or there to go along with it, but I'm going to get to meet some really cool people, and that's always fun.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the best wine that I've ever had was enjoyed with other people. And it may not be, you can't see me, but I'm putting little finger quotes up in the air, the best wine I've ever had. But it's always going to go back to an experience that I've had with somebody, some group of people, whatever it may be. And that's what makes the wine experience the best that it can be.
Everybody I talk to who's into wine says the same thing. It's about those memories. You remember what you were doing when you had a particular bottle, who you were with, who you shared it with, and things like that. That's what makes wine so much fun. Well,
we never take notes on the problems of the world that we solved, and that's the one thing that nobody has pen and paper when we're doing that. Yeah, so it's a shame, because I know I've solved the problems of the world many, many times over, but unfortunately I don't have notes.
Can't remember how you did it.
Can't remember. Yeah, we had the solutions.
All right, well, that's kind of about Killer Vino. Now let's just talk some wine. I mean, let's just get into the wine and what you do and what you just kind of educate us a little bit on things. So what regions do you cover? Can you get anything from all over the globe, from Napa to Old World in Italy and France, Argentina, New Zealand? I mean, you can get anything?
We deal with all wine regions, and okay. It's funny. We've had some wines from Bosnia, from Croatia. Those may be the same places, but they split up at some point in time. But some places that you might consider obscure. The thing that we stress is that the wine has to be good. And I'm not going to get into Texas wines, but we have had some people that have asked me, well, wow, do you sell Texas wines? And, I don't feel obligated, being here in Texas, to promote anything from Texas necessarily, unless it's on par with everything else we do. But with that said, we're showing wines from all over the world. And that's the idea, is that we're going to take people that are drinking New World wines, say California, Oregon, Washington, Chile, Argentina, and we're going to take them over to Europe and let them experience those wines. Not to say that we don't show wines from the New World, from California and that, because people like that. But yeah, there's nowhere that we don't represent.
I think most of the people that I know and started in Napa Valley, or at least I did, and the people I know. So I think that was kind of our foundation. That was kind of the bar set for us. And it's not until we get to exploring. And to me, when you drink wine, I mean, you really have to have an open mind. You can't have a foundation and say, I drink this, so when I drink a cab from Napa, a cab from France ought to be the same way. It's not going to even be close, and it shouldn't be. And I think when you drink wine, you should have an open mind to say, I'm ready to experience whatever the bottle gives me, and really judge it and kind of evaluate it on its own merit, not comparing it to a whole different region where it's not supposed to be compared to, right?
Well, I think, and I do offer consumer classes, and one of the things that I really like to do is comparative tasting. So you say that somebody has only had a Cabernet from Napa, and we want to taste them on a Bordeaux. Well, it's good to have a point of reference, because you can taste that Napa Cab right next to, you're not going to get 100% Cabernet from Bordeaux, but something that's Cab dominant. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, wow, this is how these wines are different. And it's just having a point of reference.
Okay.
So it's not, I don't think it's tasting a wine in a vacuum, because that, again, doesn't provide that point of reference.
Okay.
But when you want to just say that you want to taste a Chardonnay with oak and one without oak, and you don't really know what oak is like in the flavor profile of a wine, all of a sudden you can start to pick that out. Oh, that's what oak is. And that's one of the ways that and I'm not a super taster or anything like that, but that's one of the ways that I learned how to taste and distinguish things in wine is from comparative tasting. It's very useful.
Okay, but as far as profile, should you have the same? I mean, to me, I guess for me so far, getting into Old World as I have, I can drink a Napa wine and go, okay, I can tell this is a Napa Cab, and I can tell this is an Old World pretty distinctly, pretty clearly.
Well, and a lot
maybe
of that,
I'm not drinking the right ones or comparing the right ones.
It's funny because this might be a good segue talking about Old World versus New World. And one thing that we have that is a very distinct thing that causes a difference is the climate. Old World wine regions tend to be warmer than the New World wine regions. So you're going to get a completely different expression of a varietal, of a grape, when you have the ability to grow it and ripen it in a warm climate. Let's say in California, you don't have issues with the seasons being shortened by hail or by freezes. So they can let those grapes hang on the vine as long as they want, sometimes too long. But
that's the higher alcohol they get.
Exactly, okay. Because as the grape hangs on the vine, the sugar levels rise. And so in fermentation, yeast converts the sugar to alcohol. So the higher the sugar levels, the higher the ripeness of the grape, the higher potential alcohol level that you're going to have. When you're in a place, if you want to compare Napa Cabs to Bordeaux, well, in Bordeaux, they have to hedge their bets because sometimes they may have a season that starts late, or they may have a season that ends early because the climate is very distinct and it's colder because it's further north than Napa. Rain can also have an effect on that. And again, in Napa, it tends to be a drier climate that rain's not an issue. So in, let's say, Bordeaux, they have a lot of factors that aren't in their control that will affect the wine from vintage to vintage. And it will create differences in the expression of the wine because of the ripeness levels. Bordeaux is always blended. And so Merlot is an early ripening grape. Cabernet is a late ripening grape. It seems to be like on the left bank where you get your most of your highly classified wines, your Lafite, your Mouton, those types of things. They want to go heavy on the cab, and in an ideal growing season, that's going to be something where it lasts longer, so it doesn't get cold, it doesn't rain at the end of the season, because that will affect their timing for harvest. But what they have is their silver bullet is they have, let's just say, Merlot, where in a year where Cabernet doesn't ripen as much, you're going to get more of a green characteristic. Well, they're going to put a little more Merlot in that wine to kind of flesh that out. So they're always, when I say hedging their bets, they've got different varietals that they can blend in different quantities depending on how the harvest goes.
Okay, that makes sense. And I do want to say that I kind of fibbed a little bit. I know that I've had the Mathiasen from Napa, and I've had the Pistoni, which both remind me of Bordeaux. So, I mean, they drink like an Old World wine. I think their alcohol's 13.7 or something like that. So it reminds me of an Old World.
And they're picking based on the Brix levels. They're not going as long as they can. They're wanting to make a wine. Back in the days, in the 80s, if you look at some old bottles from Napa, you might see alcohol in the high 12s.
Right.
And they're just not doing that anymore. But I think what's happened in California is there's been a style that people come to expect. So you're going to typically see what's labeled on the bottle is about 14.5% that alcohol. Now, that can vary because at over 14%, your labeling allows a variation of 1% alcohol. So you could get something that's 14.5 and it really may be over 15.
Oh, wow. Okay, I did not know that.
They give them a little leeway. So.
Learn something new. I will tell you too, Rob, that me and my wine experience, my kind of continuing to grow in chasing wines and drinking wines, I've started to see in probably the last 6 or 8 months more people getting into Old World. And I say that not just the people I know who I see it, but I know it has to be a trend because grocery stores I'm going to where I might look for wine on occasion, I'm starting to see more Italian wines and French wines in their boxes on their shelves, and I'm going, okay, has this become? Are you seeing that trend?
Oh, absolutely. And I think what's driving that is that wine is more accessible now. So there's a lot more importers. There's a lot more people that are in the game, and it's what's new, and as with everything, it's all about what's the new kid on the block that we can sell and that we can create buzz about, and then again, hopefully people will latch onto those things, and you'll have some folks that are going to keep that going. But the other thing is that there's some really, really great values that come out of the Old World, and
that was the first thing you got me on because when we first met, you said that to me. You go, you like these wines. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to find you some fantastic wines in the Old World at prices that you can almost buy twice as much.
That's true, and if you want to go beyond fruit and oak, and I'm I don't want to be critical of California wines, but again, you're in a warm climate. Typically, at a lower price point, you're going to get something that's got a lot of fruit, and hopefully not too much oak, but sometimes the oak overpowers the fruit.
Sure.
And in the Old World, you can find wines that have outstanding character that are under $20.
Right.
Yeah. And that's not to say there's really good wines you can find at $10 or $12 too, but I think $20, $22 is a real sweet spot for finding some amazing value and some wines that drink well beyond what you would think the price or what the price should be. No,
yeah.
I didn't say that right.
Go ahead, say it again.
No, there are wines that they drink at a higher value than what the price is.
Yeah, when somebody you give somebody a glass and they go, "What'd you pay, $60 for this bottle?" You go, "No, I only paid $30."
Yeah,
kind of in that. Yeah,
and that's what we look for. We don't want to overpay for wine. Pay $100 for something that should be $50.
Yeah,
but it happens.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I've been there a couple of times.
Yeah.
So for me, I know when you come from Napa or Bordeaux, and I know I keep kind of talking about these. I do want to do another show with you, Rob. Hopefully. On Italy, because I know they have some different varietals there in other regions also, but I'm kind of focusing on the Bordeaux because that's kind of what I've been into. But I've really gotten into Malbecs and Petit Verdauxs and Cab Francs and Shiraz and seeing them stand on their own and not just be just that blending grape with the Cab and the Merlot. Is that also becoming, you seen that as a bigger trend?
Well, it's interesting. Again, in the Old World, and if you want to go back to Bordeaux, the French are really, really good at planting what will grow and what will grow the best in a certain area, whether it be the soil, whether it be that microclimate. They're not trying to force anything into somewhere where it's not going to do as well as something else will. And so, again, when you're in the New World, typically speaking, unless you're talking about a cool climate grape like a Chardonnay or a Pinot Noir versus a warm climate grape like a Cabernet or any of the Bordeaux varietals, if somebody really has an affection for Cab Franc, let's say, hey, we've got great Cab Franc here, we're going to bottle this. And, they become that. It's an outlier, but again, it's something that when somebody tastes it, they go, "Wow, I really like that," and it's different from a Cab. Petit Verdaux, that's another blending grape. You don't see that bottled on its own as much.
Right.
It's something, in Bordeaux, it's a grape that's used in very, very small percentages, sometimes to add color and to add a little structure to the wine. But on its own, it can make a pretty dense wine. So, you're asking if that's a trend. Honestly, they're already doing it in France. And again, when you go from left bank to right bank, and I don't know if we want to get into the education of Bordeaux, but left bank, a little bit warmer climate, better for Cabernet Sauvignon, not Cab Franc. When you go to the right bank, Saint-Emilion is the main appellation over there that everybody would know. You get more Merlot blended with Cab Franc, and it's just a little bit different climate over there, a little further inland, and there's more effect of the changing of the seasons.
Okay.
But you'll see Malbec in certain places.
Yeah, I guess it's just been the last couple of years I've seen, wines that I drink now offering 100% Malbec or 100% Cab Franc, or it might be dominant. Petit Verdot might be 70% of it, and then it's got a little blend of the other ones. Mm-hmm. Where I'm seeing those more featured as the wine versus, blending it with its Cab heavy or Merlot heavy or something like that. Didn't know why. I've enjoyed it. I've the Cab Franc and the Malbec, especially. I have gotten a little bit into the Petit Verdot as well. But it's been fun to kind of go experience those grapes kind of as the star of the wine versus, just kind of help support the wine.
Sure. Well, and the thing that we have in the New World, let's just say, California, you have varietal labeling. So typically they're going to tell you what's in the bottle.
And you're exactly right. That's where I'm getting it from.
Yeah. But the thing of it is that people will think, I'm drinking Cabernet Sauvignon, but the law in California is it only has to be 75% of a varietal to be called a Cabernet Sauvignon. In Bordeaux, and let's just say in the old world, they have regional labeling or appellation labels, and those appellations, they set guidelines for what can be in the wine, and oftentimes there will be percentages of certain varietals that have to be present, but there's still a broad range. So you can have 5 different Bordeaux's, and each of them could have a completely different blend of grapes and thus a different flavor profile.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, are all Bordeaux's blended? Is there 100% Cab in France? No. Okay. No. See, that's interesting too. I kind of always wondered that because you're right. On the labels, when I see Old World, I don't ever see what's the grapes. Not never. Sometimes I do, but very rarely. And I always wondered if I'd see 100% of anything out of France, and the answer is no.
I could be wrong, but I'm 99.99% sure. I've never seen Bordeaux that was 100% of any varietal.
Okay. So what would you tell people who want to, they're into Napa wines, they're into New World wines, as a lot of people I know are. How do they, and this might not be the right place, but just to give them a little tip on how to explore Old World, if they want to try something in Italy, if they want to try, is there a certain region in both those, Italy and France, that you would say you want to start here coming from Napa? Because I know you're a California drinker, I would point you to these 2 areas in those 2 countries.
Well, certainly Bordeaux is something that can, take you away from Napa, but also the Super Tuscans.
Yeah.
And the Super Tuscans have kind of, well, they've really grown in many ways, and those seem to almost connect with those California drinkers more so maybe than Bordeaux. And it's strange. I couldn't tell you the exact reasoning for that, but a lot of what we call ballers from California, they're going to drink the $100+ Cabernets. And a lot of your Super Tuscans, the big names, the Sassicaia, the Ornellaia, those wines are pretty expensive too. So when they get into those, they go, wow, this is Super Tuscan. Typically, it will have some of the Bordeaux varietals. I love Cabernet, Merlot, and blended with Sangiovese, which are the ones I prefer because it's still a little bit Italian.
Yeah.
But sometimes you'll have Super Tuscans that are just Bordeaux varietals, Cab Merlot. And so that's kind of a logical progression. They will be using French oak in those wines. And so they're making an Italian Bordeaux, but they tend to be, I think, leaning a little more towards a California palate. I'm not going to say style because they're definitely not that.
Right.
But that seems to be the connection that I see.
All right, yeah, and you're exactly right. That's where I started was the Super Tuscans and the Sangiovese specifically.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wine that my wife and I got exposed to, and man, we really like some of the wines we're drinking out of that area.
That's the first wine I sold you. In fact, we were talking about a Tolani El Paso,
That's right.
which is a blend of Merlot and Sangiovese. One of my house wines that's right around $20.
I was just going to say that really good price, and
Yeah,
I ended up buying a whole case from you because it was so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And everybody that I turn on to that wine, provided that they're not an ultra narrow palate, most people go, wow, why haven't you showed me this before? And I'd go, well, you just haven't asked.
And to your point earlier, I had a couple of buddies who were into wine try it, Christopher O'Mara being one of them, and he came back and said, Rob, this is a $20 wine drinks like a $40 wine.
Yeah.
That, to your point earlier, that's what you get in the old world. You get some really good wines at a really good cost.
Yeah. So. Thank you, Jeremy Hart. Thank you, Band.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy Hart. Absolutely.
Keep bringing that one in.
Yeah. So is there, a wines in kind of that white and red that aren't as known that you might say, yeah, if you like a Sauvignon Blanc, if you like in that big, bold wine, I would point you to some other, what are some other varietals that you like?
Well, the thing that you have in the old world is there's a lot of indigenous varietals that aren't grown, maybe don't do well in other places or don't have as much of a commercial appeal. Out of Spain, you have Tempranillo, which goes into the Riojas and the Ribera del Duero as a primary grape. If you know Barolo, Barbaresco, wines from Piemonte, the Nebbiolo. And as far as I know, I had a Nebbiolo from California, but it wasn't.
They had a Nebbiolo in California?
It wasn't the same.
I've never even seen that out there.
I can't remember the producer, but
is it grown more over? Where was that grown? Do you remember?
It was California, but it's a unicorn.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
It's a unicorn that actually exists. I was stunned. But the thing is with, I'm a big aficionado of Italian wines. So Sangiovese is one of my favorite grapes to drink every day, and of course, I like Barolo, Barbaresco, the Nebbiolo grape.
But I agree with you.
Unique.
Italy, Sangiovese, if you haven't had one, go get one. The Super Tuscans are fantastic, and Rob can hook you up with some really good ones.
Yeah, which again is why when I talk about Super Tuscans, I do want to have something that, while they may be blending in Bordeaux varietals, I want to have some Sangiovese in it because that there's just something there that speaks Italy.
And a white wine? I mean, if you like a Chardonnay, if you like a Sauvignon Blanc, I mean, is there something you go, this is a really cool wine that I know Jeremy hooked me up with a Vermicello one time that I liked a lot.
Vermentino.
A Vermentino.
Vermentino, yeah.
Which I thought was really good.
It tastes better than it sounds, right?
Yeah, it was really good.
Vermentinos are really nice grapes. That's an Italian varietal, and it's grown throughout Italy. I've found a lot of people that have been asking for wines from the Santorini region in Greece, which that varietal is Assortico. And the expression of that wine being from where it's grown on pumice, and it's got a very, very high mineral content, and it also has high acidity. Okay. So that's something I don't know. I have a group of ladies that I taste with, and they just keep sending me pictures. Can you get this wine? Can you get this wine? Every one of them is the same varietal, but they're really great wines and excellent food wines. Beyond that, Chenin Blanc is really nice, and you'll find.
I haven't heard of that one. Okay.
Well, you'll find those in the Loire.
Okay.
People know the Loire for Sancerre and Puy-Fumé, which is a Sauvignon Blanc.
I know the Puy-Fumé.
Again, really different than what you may expect from a Sauvignon Blanc if you've been drinking New Zealand style or some of the things in California. Again, all expressions that have their place and have their value. But Chenin and other places in the Loire, one of the most profound wine experiences that I've ever had was a wine called Clos de Coulis de Siron, and it's by a guy named Nicolas Joly, and he's a fellow that just he doesn't care. He doesn't care what other people think, and so the Clos de Coulis de Siron, it's a monopole, so it's actually a single vineyard that has its own appellation designation.
Oh wow!
And he produces a wine from Chenin. So the Chenin actually in this area gets botrytis, which botrytis is a rot that comes to the grape that actually dries it out. You'll hear about botrytis in the production of sweet wines like the Sauternes, but he takes this botrytis affected grape and he vinifies it completely dry. So you get this white wine that is pretty heavy, usually 15% alcohol.
Oh, wow, okay.
You want to decant it, but it's a little oxidized. It's a little like you get quince out of it. There's acid there. There's straw. It's just crazy. I mean, I could go on, and it's a wine that you can sit there and you can drink over a few hours, and it just keeps coming at you with something different and developing. Mind blowing.
And we can get that from you.
It's hard to get because again, it's a single vineyard.
Pretty pricey.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know the prices have gone up. I haven't been able to get my hands on it in several years.
Okay.
But there are some other wines that Nicolas Joly makes. Clos de Sacré, I believe, is what it's called. That's a little larger production, but none of his wines are, big commercially available wines. Typically, when I can get Clos de Coulet de Serrant, you better be a really good friend, or
you're only telling a few people.
You're not getting it from me. I mean, if I can get 3 bottles, we may drink it together. In
your fridge, yeah.
Yeah, we'll drink it together, but you're not going to get it from me. So.
Fair enough. Fair enough. The last thing on wine that I want to talk about today is I'm also seeing, I don't know if it's a trend just again amongst me and my friends, but we're starting to drink more champagne. Mm-hmm. We're getting in, and I say champagne. Maybe I should say bubbles. Is that the right thing? Because you say champagne, it's a It's a region. Educate me on this whole sparkling wine thing.
Well, champagne is a wine. It has to be from the Champagne region of France. Like a Bordeaux has to be from Bordeaux. But champagne is made in a way where the bubbles that are in the wine are created from a secondary fermentation in the bottle, which the French call method champenois. We call it the traditional method. So you can have a champagne-styled wine made in a number of places, but they won't call it champagne. The other places in France where you have a wine that's made in the traditional method would be called a Crémant. Crémant de Bourgogne, Crémant de Loire. And they're great wines too. Crémant de Limoux is another one. Out of California, sometimes they fudge it a little. The better producers, they call it, it's a California sparkling wine, but I have seen it on some of the lower priced wines. They'll call it a California champagne, but we know better than that.
Okay, I hadn't seen that, but they do. How do they get away with that?
It's California champagne. It's not a champagne.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
splitting hairs,
skirting the system a little bit. But yeah. So the thing is, I think with champagne is the trend that I see. Yes, people are drinking more bubbles, but they're understanding that the flute is not the best way to get the most out of a fine, let's just call it a champagne, but a wine in the style of champagne. There's so much going on there that in a flute with the tiny little opening, you're not getting the surface area to release all the aromas, the vinous qualities that are in that wine. A flute is designed to concentrate the bubbles, and that's what it does. So you're going to see more and more people at if they order a champagne in a restaurant, they ask for a white wine glass, and typically the sommelier goes, yeah, these people know a little bit.
Yeah.
But the thing that you sacrifice was that you get all of that vinous quality, but you don't get as much of the effervescence.
Okay. Do you have a solution for that?
I do.
You do?
I do.
And I asked that because I got those from you. So and they're our favorite glasses that we drink bubbles with now. So
yeah, that was an unapologetic capitalist segue, right?
Yeah, it was. Absolutely. You're welcome.
Well, thank you. No, I have found some glasses. It's called the Etoile Sparkle, and French name, but designed by an Italian, made in Italy. And these glasses, there's Etoile Noir, which is a massive red wine glass, and actually we've poured an entire glass of wine or an entire bottle of wine into the glass, and then there's Etoile Blanc. But I think the really special one is the Etoile Sparkle, which is made for champagne sparkling wines. And it has a broad surface area at the bottom, which again allows a lot of that wine to come in contact with air, and it releases all the vinous qualities. I keep going back to that word. I've probably said it a dozen times here, but and then it basically comes to a small opening at the top, so those aromas are concentrated, directs them into your nose, which is that's where we taste. We do the majority of our tasting through our nose. That's another segment.
Yeah, we'll do that show for sure.
But the cool thing about these glasses is they have these little points in the bottom, and the Italian term is the perlage points. And basically, if you let the wine sit in the glass, you're going to see each of these points percolating the bubbles. So not only do you get a wine that releases the aromatics of the wine that's in the glass, but you also have something in there that affects the persistence of the bubbles. So amazing glasses, and everybody that I've shown these glasses is blown away. It's a no-brainer. We've done side-by-side tastings with a flute. Everybody goes, wow, this I'm not getting anything here.
Yeah.
And then we do a white wine glass, better. But then we have these Etoile glasses, and even the most novice person can tell the difference. So I mean, it's something that
whoever designed it, he did a good job.
They did a great job.
Figured it out.
They did a great job.
And champagne drinkers need to say a big thank you to him, because it makes the experience a lot better.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, let's also talk just briefly. Well, one, let me say, I think can you go ahead and commit to me that tell the people we're going to try to do a YouTube show, and we'll kind of go over those glasses. Can we say we'll do that at some point, maybe the next few weeks?
I think that's worth seeing and worth people looking at.
Maybe we'll bring in somebody to do the show with us that can we can test that theory. Do they get a little bit, a little blind thing, make it a little fun or something?
I think we should just invite your guests in and let them test it themselves.
Okay, maybe we'll do that. That sounds like a good idea too. But so we'll do that with the champagne glass, because I think that's important. I think you see a big difference. But also, to me, what I've learned over the last several years is that the glass itself makes a difference for what you're drinking. When I first started drinking wine, I didn't think it did. I was like, yeah, you put it in the glass, it doesn't really matter. I've figured out as I've gotten more educated in wine and what I'm drinking, the vessel you put it in, it helps the wine and help you in the experience of enjoying that wine.
Sure. You can thank Riedel for that.
Okay.
Because I think that...
Do we have to pay them? Well, man, they're expensive.
Yeah, and you break them just by sneezing.
Yeah, exactly.
I could have paid my mortgage twice with all the Riedel glasses that I've broken. But there is an aesthetic to drinking wine. Riedel came out with the very, very thin-lipped glasses, and it's always a turnoff to me if I go to a restaurant and get a nice bottle of wine and I've got to drink out of a glass that has an edge like a Libby.
Right,
a jelly
big,
jar.
Yeah.
So there is an aesthetic to drinking wine that is enhanced by the quality of the glass. I don't necessarily agree with Riedel that you have to have a different glass for every varietal. You can get away with having an all-purpose red, an all-purpose white, and something for bubbles. You should have the Etoile Sparkle for bubbles, I do say. But, there are glasses that, if you want to broaden that a little bit, there's certainly some other glasses that are suited to specific varietals if you want to go down that road. But
and again, they can get these from you.
Absolutely, yeah.
You've hooked me up.
I have. Well, and the things that I offer, that I represent and sell,
it's not right.
These are things that I use. I'm not trying to push things that. I mean, if you come to my house, you're going to see that I'm using the glassware that I offer for sale, and it's just one of those things that I have a belief in it, and I know that it's enhanced my wine experience. And I want to share that with people.
Sure, yeah. Absolutely. Well, let's tell the people one more time how they can get a hold of you, how they can kind of get signed up, where they need to send that email to get on your email alerts for all the tastings and wine things that you have. Do that one more time.
Sure. So it's events@killervino.com. If you do send an email, just somewhere indicate that you heard this from the podcast, and include a name and a phone number, and we can put you in the database, and at least that way we know where you came from, because we'll always ask, how do you know me?
Yeah. Yeah.
and we do have people that through the network. We always say, hey, tell friends about what we're doing, and that's been a very successful way that we've grown the family. But beyond that, you can also go to www.killervino.com, and you'll see it's not a big collection of things, but we do have the glasses, some olive oils. I'm a big olive oil aficionado as well. We could talk about that at some point in time. But just check it out, and we would love to come out and do an event in Katy. I'm really excited.
We're going to make that happen. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's not talk about we're thinking about doing it. Let's say we're going to do it.
We're going to do it for sure. We're just trying to figure out the time frame. Once we get that figured out, we'll let everybody know.
Yeah, absolutely. But this has been a real pleasure. I
we appreciate you coming on, and look forward to doing some more episodes and kind of maybe starting to talk about just educating our listeners, and I know I want to be educated, so the people listening on the different wines around the world and what we can go chase down and explore, or call you up and have you get for us when we hear you talking about something really cool.
Do you get feedback from your listeners as far as things that they would like you to talk about on the podcast?
I do.
Yeah. Because this has been, we've covered a lot of things. This has been just like
a very broad
general
conversation. Yeah. So I think in some of the other episodes, we'll narrow it down to, it might even be a couple of different things that we need to talk about in, say, France, where we're talking about Bordeaux and left bank, right bank, and then maybe another one on Rhone and southern France and things like that.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it'll be some fun shows, and I think people will really appreciate it and get some good value out of it.
Absolutely.
But thank you for coming on today, Rob.
Thanks a bunch.
Appreciate it. And for everybody listening, thank you for doing so, and we appreciate you joining us on this episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey in Your Own Backyard. And until the next episode, enjoy your next pour.